The nation's third largest school district is closed for a second day because of a dispute over COVID-19 safety. City officials in Chicago and the teachers union are at odds over whether it's safe to continue in-person classes as Omicron cases surge in the city. Earlier this week, 73% of teachers voted to stop reporting to work for in-person classes. Instead, they called for a transition to remote learning. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot expressed frustration with the union's decision.
Why are we here again when we know that the safest place for our children is in school? Why are we here again when we know that our schools are safe? We have put over $100 million of resources into our schools over the last 2 years.
For more on this, I want to bring in Dana Kozlov with our Chicago station, WBBM. And earlier this week, we had Education Secretary Miguel Cardona on CBSN. He said that he supports in-person classes and making sure school districts have what they need. Let's listen.
I do recognize there's a lot of fear and concern. Ultimately, I support in-person learning if it's safe. And I do believe we have the tools now to make in-person learning safe. I do believe that we need to continue to provide in-person learning because either we're helping address opportunity gaps or they're getting worse. So for me, there's a sense of urgency to use the tools that we have at our disposal. There are funds.
Dana, thank you for joining us. Given the support from the Education Secretary and health officials and science showing it's safe, why is the teachers union refusing to teach in-person classes?
Well, frankly, Meg, the head of the Chicago Teachers Union says, well, that may be the case in other districts, but for the Chicago Public School District, they don't believe that is the case. They don't believe that the layered safety mitigations district-wide that are in place right now are providing enough protection from especially the variant right now. And so they are saying, our teachers want to make sure. I will say, that before the break, which ended Monday, I have two children, two teenagers in the system, and there were already grumblings. They came home saying, our teachers are saying we're going to go remote for a couple of weeks after the break. And that didn't happen. The district doubled down and said, we're going to go back. So there had already been talk within the rank and file and within union leadership that we should go remote. They should go remote. That didn't happen. They took the vote. They're saying, this is all about safety, despite what others are saying. They don't have faith in the mayor and her layered safety mitigations district-wide. They say it's uneven. So they're citing safety. However, now that this vote has been taken, and you mentioned it was 73% of the teachers that voted, 20,000 of the 25,000 or so teachers voted, they are saying now what we want, is we want to talk safety specifics moving forward.
District officials decided to cancel school altogether instead of going all remote like the teachers union voted for. Why won't the district agree to have online classes, at least temporarily, while they sort this out?
That's a good question. I mean, that specific question has really not been answered by the head of the Chicago Public Schools or the mayor. What they basically say is, no, we need our students back in class. We know it's best for them. And it's safe. So they specifically haven't answered why they refuse to have this remote pause, if you will. So that's a question they have evaded. They just want students back in class.
Has the union specified exactly what it will take for them to agree to go back? What exactly are these safety measures, these extra safety measures that they need?
Well, in a letter to its rank and file members the night of the vote, they said a couple of things, or leaders said a couple of things. Number one, they plan to return to in-person learning on January 18th. They would return earlier if the COVID surge substantially subsides. That's in quotes, which of course is very vague. Or they'll return if they have a safety agreement reached with district officials that the union House of Delegates votes on. And that really now is where the union is at. Its position is, we want to negotiate a safety agreement, and a huge component of that safety agreement, the union leaders say, is testing. They want a very comprehensive opt-out testing program for students before they return. They say that's necessary. And then once they get that comprehensive testing in place, they want to map out a very thorough screening or testing screening program to follow up. One thing that was interesting, and I had to ask about this, was they kept talking about for students, and I had to ask a spokesperson, well, what about for teachers? Would teachers be exempt from this, or would they also be required to test unless they opt out? And the spokesperson said, well, yeah, I would assume teachers would as well. So that's really what they want right now. They're focusing on a comprehensive opt-out testing program for students district-wide, and that's, more than 330,000 students.
Dana, any chance this would get resolved before January 18th? Any chance you could go to school tomorrow? Are they having meetings? Are they negotiating every single night?
Well, yesterday, the mayor said they plan to continue negotiating. So did union leaders. I know there was a meeting yesterday. I am not clear exactly when they are meeting today, but they do continue to meet. Principals, meanwhile, system-wide are sending out notices to families saying, hey, on a school-by-school basis, we're going to see if we have the staff available to have educational activities Friday. And if so, we'll let you know and you can send your students to school. I know my high schoolers had to register if they even plan to go, if this was even an option. But of course, that would mean you have to have a set amount of staff, and that would include rank and file CTU members who would go in. On the mayoral or the district side, there are a couple of other options being considered. One, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said yesterday she did file an unfair labor practice complaint, and she is considering going to court to get an emergency junction to force teachers back to work before the 18th, but no new specifics about that have come up today yet.
Such a frustrating situation, especially considering we saw school districts reopen safely even before the vaccines were approved. Dana Kozlov from our Chicago station, WBBM, thank you so much.
You bet.